My name is Patricia, and at 72 years old, I've learned a harsh truth: blood doesn't guarantee respect. Respect must be earned, and when it's absent for too long, the heart simply stops beating for those who ignore it. The morning of my birthday began like any ordinary Saturday. I woke up in my apartment in the city center, where I'd moved after selling the family home 5 years ago. The sale wasn't out of financial necessity, it was an emotional decision. Too many memories of birthdays no one showed up for. Too many Christmases spent alone while my son, Theodore, chose his wife's family traditions over mine. I made coffee in the says Theodore gave me 6 years ago for Mother's Day, back when he still made an effort. The irony wasn't lost on me, that might have been the last gift he ever put real thought into. I sat down in my chair by the window and waited. Not for greetings or surprise visits, I had taught myself not to expect that anymore. I was waiting to see just how low the bar would fall this year. The message came at 10:23 a.m. This year, no one's doing gifts. We're cutting back. By the way, happy birthday. I stared at that message for a long time, feeling something cold and final settle in my chest. It wasn't pain, it was clarity. A sharp, cutting realization of exactly where I stood on my son's list of priorities. A mother's story. Theodore is 41. I know this with absolute certainty because I was there for every one of his birthdays, until he married Isabella 5 years ago. I remember the long labor, the complications that nearly took both our lives. His father, Michael, was stationed overseas and didn't meet his son until he was 10 months old. I raised Theodore mostly on my own for the first 4 years. Michael came back a changed man, distant, more focused on his next deployment than his family. When Theodore turned 7, Michael requested a permanent transfer to Germany. I chose to stay behind to give Theodore a stable home. Michael sent checks regularly, but never came back for birthdays, graduations, or holidays. When Theodore graduated high school with honors, Michael sent a card with a $100 bill inside. When he finished university with a degree in software engineering, Michael called to congratulate him. The call lasted 9 minutes. It was me who stayed up all night when Theodore had pneumonia at age 9. Me who drove him to soccer practice every Tuesday and Thursday for 7 years. Me who helped him through the awkward teenage years, his first heartbreak, and the anxiety of applying to college. I worked double shifts as a hospital administrator to pay for his education, turning down promotions that required travel because I couldn't leave him alone. And I was proud of the man he became. Truly proud, a smart, successful man earning 6 figures at a tech company. He bought a beautiful home, upgraded his car every 2 years, and vacationed in places I'd only seen in magazines. Then came Isabella. Then he met Isabella. Isabella Sanchez, 29 when they started dating, now 34. Beautiful, with long dark hair and striking brown eyes. She worked in marketing, earned decent money, and came from a tight-knit Mexican family. On paper, she was everything I should have wanted for my son. The problem started subtly. Theodore began skipping Sunday dinners, Isabella's family's in town. He forgot my birthday 3 years ago because he was planning a surprise party for Isabella's mother, Sophia. Every holiday was spent with the Sanchez family. "Mom, you should see how they do Christmas, it's like something out of a movie," he once told me. I watched my son slowly drift away. Phone calls became shorter. Visits stopped unless I initiated them. And when I did see him, Isabella was always there, polite but distant, always steering the conversation toward her family's latest adventures or achievements. Sophia Sanchez became the center of their universe. Sophia, who was 58, 14 years younger than me, and who had apparently never worked a day in her life. Sophia, who lived in a luxury home in Miami, fully supported by alimony from her ex-husband. Sophia, who expected monthly visits from her daughter and son-in-law, who had them cover family dinners, shopping sprees, and spa days. And Theodore, my brilliant, accomplished son, did all of it with a smile. Isabella's mom had a rough time after the divorce, he explained. She gave up her career to raise her kids. The least we can do is make her comfortable. Turning point. For weeks before my birthday, Theodore called to tell me about yet another Sophia crisis. Isabella's mom is really struggling. Her divorce settlement is being contested, and her lawyer thinks she might lose the house. We're thinking of helping her with a loan. How much? I asked. 80,000. Maybe 100. Just until things get sorted out. $80,000. More than I'd spent on anything in the last 10 years combined. That's a lot of money, Theodore. I know. But family takes care of family, right? You taught me that. Family takes care of family. Those words echoed in my mind for weeks after the call. The truth revealed. When I received his birthday message, that same cold clarity returned. I walked over to my desk and opened my laptop. Theodore's Instagram account was public. The photo had been posted 8 hours earlier. Theodore, Isabella, and Sophia stood in front of Santorini's iconic blue domes, all three beaming for the camera. Sophia wore a designer coat. Isabella's handbag was unmistakably Louis Vuitton. The caption read, "Mother-in-law gifted us our dream trip. Santorini. Family above all. Feeling blessed." They had been in Santorini for 6 days. 6 days that included my birthday. Family above all. Feeling blessed. I closed the laptop and smiled. You see, there was something Theodore didn't know about his mother-in-law's financial situation. Something not even Isabella knew. I had discovered it 4 months ago, completely by accident. Sophia Sanchez wasn't broke because of divorce litigation. Sophia Sanchez was under investigation by the IRS for 7 years of tax evasion. She had systematically concealed income from 3 different sources: a successful handmade jewelry business online, rental income from 2 Florida properties, and consulting payments from her ex-husband's construction firm. The woman pretending to be a struggling single mom was actually making around $400,000 a year, and lying to everyone, including her own daughter. But that wasn't even the most interesting part. The most interesting part was this. Sophia was using Theodore and Isabella's financial support to fund her legal defense. Every family dinner they paid for, every shopping trip they sponsored, every emergency loan, all of it went straight to the law firm helping her hide assets from federal investigators. I picked up my phone and contacted Agent Benjamin Carter from the IRS Criminal Investigations Division. He'd been very interested in my information 4 months ago and had asked me to reach out if I learned anything else about Sophia's finances. The Santorini photos would certainly catch Agent Carter's attention, especially since Sophia had filed for bankruptcy just 8 weeks earlier, claiming she had no assets beyond her primary residence. I typed up a brief message, attached screenshots from Theodore's Instagram, and hit send. Then I poured myself another cup of coffee and settled into my chair to wait. In 2 days, my son would return from his dream vacation, expecting to slide back into the comfortable routine of supporting his wife's family and treating his own mother like an afterthought. Instead, he'd find out what happens when you choose the wrong people to protect. The arrest. Agent Benjamin Carter called me 3 hours later. "Mrs. Patricia, this is exactly the documentation we needed. The timing couldn't be better. We've been building a case against Ms. Sanchez for 24 months, but we needed proof of her current financial status. The trip to Santorini, so carefully documented on social media, directly contradicted her sworn testimony in bankruptcy court. We'll need your official statement regarding the Sanchez family's financial support," he continued. "Bank records, any conversations you overheard, documentation of gifts or loans." "I can do better," I said. "I can give you recordings." There was a pause. "Mrs. Patricia, I want to be very clear. We cannot ask you to secretly record anyone. Of course not, I said smoothly. I'm simply saying that when my son returns from Santorini and inevitably calls to tell me about Sophia's latest financial crisis, I'll be sure to take the call on speaker, from my home office, where I happen to keep my digital recorder for dictating my memoirs. Another pause. Then, your memoirs must be very detailed, Mrs. Patricia. I believe in documenting family history accurately, Agent Carter. The final evening. The next morning, I went to the market and bought ingredients for Theodore's favorite dish, teriyaki salmon, the one I used to make every Sunday when he was growing up. Then I stopped by the florist and ordered a dozen white roses to be delivered to his house Friday evening, when he returned from Santorini. The card read, "Welcome home, son. I'd love to make you dinner this weekend. We have some things to talk about. Love, Mom." Theodore called me Friday evening. I could hear the fatigue in his voice, but something else too. Excitement, mixed with anxiety. "Mom, thank you for the flowers. They're beautiful. And yes, I'd love to come for dinner Sunday. Actually, there's something I need to talk to you about." I turned on my digital recorder and leaned back in my chair. "What's going on, sweetheart?" "It's about Isabella's mom. It's worse than we thought. Her lawyers think the bankruptcy might not protect her assets. There's some kind of federal investigation now." "A federal investigation? That sounds serious." "It is." Sophia's panicking. "Isabella's been crying for 3 days. Apparently the IRS thinks Sophia hid money, which is ridiculous. You've seen how she lives. She can barely afford groceries half the time." I murmured appropriate sympathetic noises, mentally cataloging the lies. "What kind of help does she need?" I asked, already knowing. "Her lawyers want $150,000 upfront for a defense fund. They say federal cases are complicated, expensive. Without proper representation, she could lose everything. $150,000. The number hit me like a physical blow, not because it was shocking, but because it was so expected. Before making any big financial decisions, I said carefully, "Have you looked into the charges against Sophia? Federal investigations don't just appear out of nowhere." "Mom, of course they do. The government goes after innocent people all the time. Sophia's just an easy target, a divorced woman with no connections." "I'm sure you're right," I said. "It just seems like an odd coincidence, the investigation happening right after she filed for bankruptcy." "What do you mean?" "Well, timing-wise, it's suspicious. Bankruptcy cases are public record. If someone wanted to challenge Sophia's financial statements, they'd now have access to all her filings. It'd be very easy to compare what she told the court to how she's actually living." There was a long pause. Then, "Mom, you're being paranoid. Sophia doesn't live luxuriously. The Santorini trip was a gift from us, remember? We paid for everything, she's been through so much." The truth comes out. Sunday evening, when Theodore arrived at my apartment, I was ready. The table was set, candles lit, and the digital recorder discreetly placed beside my water glass. After dinner, I opened my laptop. "Speaking of family," I said, "I wanted to show you some childhood photos." But instead of baby pictures, the screen lit up with Sophia's Facebook business page, years of posts about her thriving jewelry company. Theodore stared at the screen. "What is this?" "This is Sophia's Treasures," I said calmly. "Your mother-in-law's online business. The one that supposedly barely stayed afloat for the past 7 years." I slowly scrolled, letting Theodore take in the customer reviews, shipping updates, photos of luxury pieces, hundreds of transactions, thousands of dollars in documented sales. "I don't understand," Theodore said. This must be old. I clicked the timestamp on the latest post. This was uploaded 2 days ago. While you were in Santorini, Sophia was fulfilling orders and shipping jewelry all over the country. There must be an explanation, I said, switching to a new browser tab. Here's her LinkedIn profile. She lists herself as a business development consultant for Martinez Construction. That's your father-in-law's company, right? The one paying her $18,000 a month for consulting services. I watched the color drain from my son's face. And here, I continued, opening another tab, is her Pinterest account, where she documented her real estate investments, 2 rental properties in Florida, fully renovated and generating about $12,000 a month. Theodore stared silently at the screen. Mom, he finally whispered, where did you get all of this? From the internet, Theodore. It's all public. Sophia's been documenting her success on social media for years. I opened the bankruptcy filing where Sophia claimed less than $20,000 in assets. Then I pulled up her Instagram, full of glamorous shots from Santorini. She filed for bankruptcy 8 weeks ago. Swore under oath she had no money, no assets, no income aside from alimony. Then she took a week-long vacation to Santorini and posted the whole thing online. Theodore sat frozen, staring at the screen like a man watching his world collapse in real time. A federal investigation isn't a witch hunt, sweetheart. It's a tax evasion case. Sophia hid income from 3 separate sources for 7 years. She owes the government over $600,000 in taxes and penalties. I opened one last tab, contact information for Agent Carter from the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. And tomorrow morning, she'll be arrested. The final confrontation. Theodore jumped to his feet so quickly his chair toppled over. What did you do? I gave the federal agents information. Information that was already public. It was just sitting there. No one bothered to look. You turned in Isabella's mother. Your daughter-in-law's family. I turned in a criminal, Theodore. A woman who systematically defrauded the federal government and manipulated you and Isabella to fund her legal defense. Theodore began pacing the small dining room, fists clenched. Do you realize what this will do to Isabella? To our marriage? Do you realize what would have happened to your marriage if you lost your home trying to fund Sophia's defense? If you drained your savings defending a woman who's been lying to you for years? She's family. No, Theodore, I'm family. I'm the woman who raised you, sacrificed for you, and cares about your future. Sophia is a stranger who used you. He stopped and turned to me. You're jealous. You're jealous because I have something with Sophia that I never had with you. The words hit exactly where he wanted, but instead of pain, Theodore faced a woman who had long outgrown emotional manipulation. You're absolutely right, I said. Sophia gave you something I never could. Theodore blinked, clearly not expecting agreement. She gave you the experience of being exploited by someone you love. She taught you what it means to be valued only for what you can provide financially. She showed you exactly what it looks like when family uses family. I stood and began clearing plates with deliberate precision. For 5 years, you prioritized a woman who sees you as a walking wallet over a woman who sees you as her greatest achievement. And tomorrow, you'll learn the cost of that choice. Mom, please, if you reported it, you can undo it. I looked at my son, the man I had raised and loved unconditionally for 41 years, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. I made my choice, just as you made yours, Theodore, based on values and priorities. The difference is, mine will protect you from financial ruin. Yours would have destroyed your future for the sake of a criminal. What about Isabella? What about our marriage? What about it? If your marriage can't survive the truth that your wife's mother is a tax fraud, then it was never very strong to begin with. Theodore stared at me for a long time. You destroyed our family, he finally said. No, sweetheart. I revealed what your family really is. Sophia destroyed herself the moment she chose to hide income from federal investigators. I just made sure you didn't destroy yourself trying to save her. He grabbed his jacket and moved toward the door. I'll never forgive you for this. I followed him to the entryway. I know, I said. And I'm perfectly fine with that. Theodore turned back one last time, and for a brief moment, I saw the little boy who used to run to me when he was scared or hurt. But that boy was gone, replaced by a man who had long ago chosen his loyalties. I hope it was worth it, he said. I thought about the $150,000 he wouldn't lose. The house he wouldn't mortgage. The marriage that might survive once the truth was out. And the future he would still have, because I protected him from his own misguided generosity. It was worth it, I said and closed the door behind him. Epilogue, The Arrest and Reckoning. Early the next morning, Agent Carter called me. Miss Patricia, we executed the warrant at 5:30 a.m. Sofia Sanchez is in federal custody. Theodore called an hour later. Mom. His voice was hollow, exhausted. Sophia was arrested this morning. I know, I said. Agent Carter called to inform me. They say she owes over $600,000 in taxes. They say she's been hiding income for 7 years. Isabella is devastated. She had no idea. I'm sorry it's so hard for both of you, I said, and I meant it. The lawyers say Sophia could face 7 years in prison. 7 years, Mom. And the house in Miami might be seized as restitution. What about the money you were planning to give her? I asked. We can't. Our attorney says any money we transfer to Sophia now could be seen as part of a conspiracy. We could be charged as accomplices if we try to help her financially. The $150,000 Theodore had been ready to sacrifice was now safely protected by federal law. Theodore, I said gently, you need to understand something. This investigation began months before your birthday, before Santorini, before all of this. Sophia's arrest has nothing to do with how I feel about the way you treated me. There was a long silence. But you could have warned us. You could have said something before we made all those plans. Would you have believed me if I came to you 4 months ago and said Sophia was hiding income? Would you have listened? Another pause. You would have accused me of jealousy and bitterness, I continued. You would have defended her, just like you did last night. The only reason you see the truth now is because federal agents arrested her with hard evidence. 1 month later, lunch with Isabella. A month after Sophia's arrest, I received an invitation I never expected. Isabella wanted to meet for lunch. We met at a quiet restaurant. Isabella looked older than her 34 years. The stress was visible in the dark circles under her eyes. Thank you for coming, she said. I wasn't sure you would. I'm always here for my daughter-in-law, I replied. Sentencing hearing is next week, Isabella said. 7 years in federal prison plus $1.2 million in restitution. $1.2 million. Sophia's criminal activity was far more extensive than anyone had realized. How are you holding up? I asked. Better than Theodore. Honestly, I think I'm angrier than he is. Isabella pulled a manila folder from her purse. My mother stole from me, she said. She stole my trust, my peace of mind, my ability to believe anything she ever told me. But she also stole from Theodore, and from you. She slid the folder across the table. I skimmed the columns, meticulously documented expenses, groceries, utilities, car repairs, medical bills, emergency loans. $93,000, Isabella said. Over 5 years, we gave my mother $93,000, while she was earning $400,000 a year and hiding it from everyone. "There's more," she added. "I found this in Theodore's desk last week." She handed me a small velvet box. Inside was a simple but elegant necklace, a gold chain with a tiny heart-shaped pendant. "He bought it for your 72nd birthday," Isabella said softly. "According to the jeweler's records, he spent 3 hours choosing it. Then he decided not to give it to you because my mother had another financial crisis and needed help with legal fees." I held the necklace to the light, watching the pendant catch the midday sun. "Keep it," Isabella said as I tried to return the box. "He bought it for you. He decided not to give it to me. He made the wrong choice about a lot of things. But his first instinct was right." I clasped the necklace around my neck, feeling the slight weight of the pendant on my chest. "Is Theodore still angry with me?" I asked. "Furious. But he's also beginning to understand what you saved him from. Our financial planner showed us projections yesterday. If we had emptied our savings and mortgaged our home to set up Sophia's legal fund, we'd be financially ruined for the next 20 years. What happens now?" I asked. "Now we rebuild. Theodore's in therapy, trying to work through his guilt and anger. I'm in therapy too, learning to trust my own judgment again." "And your marriage?" For the first time since we sat down, Isabella smiled. "Actually stronger. This whole experience taught us we're on the same team. Even when we're dealing with impossible situations, we support each other, not our extended families." Final confrontation, the wedding. The following weekend was a family gathering. Theodore's cousin was getting married, and there was a reception at a hotel. Theodore didn't want me there, he was still too angry. But Isabella invited me anyway. "I'll be there," I said. The wedding reception was exactly as awkward as I expected. Theodore saw me enter the ballroom and went pale with shock and fury. Various relatives approached me throughout the night. Some offered sympathy for the family drama, others just wanted gossip about the scandal. Theodore avoided me for most of the evening. But as the reception wound down and guests began to leave, he finally approached my table. "Why are you here?" he asked, his voice tight with restrained anger. "Isabella invited me. This is my family, Mom. My relatives, my friends. You can't just show up and pretend nothing happened." I looked at my son and felt the same cold clarity. "Nothing happened, Theodore. A criminal was arrested, fraudulent behavior exposed, and you were saved from financial ruin. Those are facts, not tragedies. You destroyed my trust in my own judgment. You made me question everything I believed about family, loyalty, love. You turned my world upside down. I gave you information. You decided what to do with it. You manipulated the situation. You could have warned me privately, but instead you went to the federal government and made it public. You humiliated me. I protected you in the only way that would actually work. If I'd warned you privately, you would have dismissed my concerns and gone ahead with your plans. The only way to stop you from destroying your financial future was to ensure Sophia was arrested before you could give her a single dollar." Theodore stared at me for a long moment. "Do you regret it? Do you feel any remorse for what you put us through?" I truly considered the question. Do I regret protecting my son's financial future? Do I regret exposing a criminal? Do I regret choosing Theodore's long-term well-being over his short-term emotional comfort? No, I said simply. I don't regret it. Then we have nothing left to say. Theodore turned and walked away, grabbing Isabella sharply and heading for the exit. I watched them go and felt a deep sense of closure. I had done what needed to be done. Final revelation, the truth about Sophia. A week later, I received a call from Agent Carter with an update that changed everything. "Mrs. Patricia, there's something you need to know." During our investigation, we uncovered additional information about Ms. Sanchez. What kind of information? She was planning to flee. We found evidence that she was preparing to escape to a country with no extradition treaty. She had forged documents, offshore bank accounts, and a one-way ticket to Costa Rica booked for the week after her arrest. My heart stopped. The following week? Yes, ma'am. If we hadn't arrested her when we did, she would have vanished, with the money your son and daughter-in-law were about to give her. They never would have seen her again. And their $150,000 would have been gone forever. I slowly sank into my chair, grasping the full scale of what could have happened. There's more, Agent Carter continued. We found letters she wrote to her attorney. In them, she specifically referred to the naive son-in-law and his plans to give her money to escape. She was planning to use your children as funding for her getaway from justice. When the call ended, I sat in silence for a long time, processing the truth. Sophia hadn't just defrauded the IRS, she was planning to disappear, using my son's money as seed funding for a new life. I knew I had to tell Theodore. Dramatic finale. Final understanding. I called Theodore and asked him to come over. To my surprise, he agreed. When he arrived the next evening with Isabella, his face was still cold, but I noticed something else in his eyes, exhaustion from anger. What did you want to tell us? He asked sharply. I told them everything, the escape plan, the forged documents, the offshore accounts, the plane ticket to Costa Rica. How Sophia had planned to use their money to flee justice. When I finished, the room was completely still. Isabella was the first to speak, her voice barely a whisper. She was going to leave me. Forever. Theodore sat frozen, his face pale. Finally, he looked at me. If we'd given her that money, she would have vanished the following week, I said quietly. With your $150,000. And you never would have seen her again. Theodore lowered his head into his hands. Oh my God. What was I doing? Isabella was silently crying. She never loved me. I was just a means to an end. I stepped forward and, for the first time in months, placed my hand on my son's shoulder. He didn't pull away. Theodore, I said softly, you couldn't have known. She was a professional manipulator. She used your love for Isabella and your natural instinct to help family. He looked at me, and in his eyes, I saw the little boy I once knew. Mom, I treated you so horribly. I chose her over you. I blamed you for tearing our family apart, when in reality, you saved me from destroying myself. You couldn't have known, I repeated. But now you do. Isabella walked over to us, her face wet with tears. Patricia, can you ever forgive us? For putting her above you. For ignoring you. I looked at the two young people in front of me, my son and the woman I had come to love like a daughter, and felt warmth returning to my heart after months of coldness. Of course I can, I said. Family forgives. Real family does. Theodore hugged me then, tightly, like he hadn't in years. I'm so sorry, Mom. For everything. For the birthday, for ignoring you, for not seeing that you were trying to protect me. It's okay, sweetheart, I whispered, hugging him back. It's okay. Isabella joined our embrace, and we stood there together in my little apartment, a real family, finally reunited. Epilogue, 1 year later. 1 year later, I celebrated my 73rd birthday surrounded by my real family. Theodore and Isabella threw a surprise party in my apartment, invited relatives and friends, and for the first time in years, I felt truly loved and appreciated. Sophia Sanchez was serving her sentence in federal prison. Her appeal had been denied, and she was ordered to pay full restitution of $1.2 million. The Miami house was sold, her business shut down, and all her hidden assets were seized. Theodore and Isabella used the money they'd saved, thanks to my intervention, to invest in their future. They bought a bigger house, opened savings accounts for the children they planned to have, and started putting money away for retirement. Most importantly, they learned to tell the difference between real family and people who only use family ties for personal gain. Mom, Theodore told me that birthday, I thank God every day for a mother who loved me enough to protect me from myself. And I thank God for a son who finally learned the difference between love and manipulation, I replied. We both learned valuable lessons that year. Theodore learned that real family isn't always the most agreeable, but they always act in your best interest. And I learned that sometimes, the greatest act of love is one that goes unrecognized and unappreciated at first. In the end, our family grew stronger through the trials. We discovered the truth about loyalty, sacrifice, and what it really means to care for someone. And I will never regret my decision to protect my son, even if it had cost me our relationship. Thankfully, it didn't. But even if it had, it still would have been the right decision. Because that's what unconditional motherly love looks like, being willing to sacrifice everything to protect your child, even when that child doesn't understand. Thank you for listening to the end of this story. If it touched your heart or reminded you of the importance of true family values, I would be grateful if you shared your thoughts in the comments below. There are many more stories on my channel about family drama, difficult choices, and the triumph of true love over manipulation. Be sure to check out my Family Drama Stories playlist for more tales that will make you reflect on what it really means to be family. And don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon so you never miss a future story. Your support means the world to me. See you in the next story. 2 hearts.